Welcome to what could be a pretty significant seat. Why so? Well, this seat just happens to be in the third row of what is now the cheapest 7-seater on sale in the UK. It's called the Dacia Jogger, and you can buy one brand new from just £15,000. In this CarGurus UK review, we are going to see if the Jogger has more than a high seat count and a low price on its side. So hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and let's get going. Now, in profile, this thing almost reminds me a bit of the old Skoda Roomster, and actually Dacia's approach is a bit like Skoda's as well, in that it will take existing parts, in this case it's the platform from the Clio and the Sandero, but then change them to create something unique. So actually, up to about here, the B-pillar, it's basically a Sandero, and then the roof kicks up by 4 centimetres here, and the wheelbase is not just longer than the Sanderos, but actually it finishes in a whole different county to the front of the car. And then at the rear of the car, you've got these lights, which I could swear come straight from a Mark 1 Volvo XC90, who knows. And the result of all this, well, I can't tell if it's really quite cool or just a bit strange. To help it blend in, Dacia's added some SUV-like flourishes, including slightly more ground clearance than you get in an average family car, along with protective body cladding. Now, along with that SUV-inspired styling, Dacia claims that this Jogger offers the practicality of an estate car and the versatility of an MPV. It makes it sound a bit like a jack of all trades, doesn't it? And also, I think Dacia's out-Skoda'd Skoda with this one because it's got some really clever touches, my favourite of which is that these roof rails, with the help of an Allen key and about 5 minutes of work, can transform into roof bars. How neat is that? Okay, so let's look at the versatility and practicality of the Dacia Jogger. So, start off, we've got all 7 seats in place, 212 litres of boot space like this. Actually, that's really not too bad. You can fit some shopping bags or a couple of kids' scooters or something. But I will say you cannot have a 7-seat car for 15 grand and there not be some evidence of cost cutting. This is a good example. So this parcel shelf, it doesn't store under the floor or anything neat like that. Basically, you just pull out this flimsy bit of trim from here and you poke it in there. Also, for folding the seats, again, this is all a bit not very slick, but you push those down like that, then you pull a strap, and as you can see, these do not fall flat into the floor like they do in more expensive MPVs. They just topple up like that. Now obviously you do have quite a big boot there. The next stage would be to remove these seats. So you pull those 2 things there. These actually weigh 10 kilos each, which is really not that heavy at all, but of course you will have to find somewhere to store them. Take the other one out as well. Clip, clip. Right, there we go. We now have, well, a really big boot. This is up there with the biggest of estate cars. The next stage from here is to fold the second row of seats. I'll show you what you do there. Now to fold these, it's nice and simple. 1 strap, you pull that up. First stage is they topple like that, and then you can fold them up like that. Now these seats, unlike the second row, can't be removed entirely. But if you get them like that, you've basically got a van. Getting the seats back into place is as straightforward as taking them out, and to do that we will use the magic of editing. Okay, let me show you this third row of seats and how you get to it. So first, you could just drop that and clamber over, but not if you're my age. So instead you then topple this up. You actually have a really nice space to get through. I would say though, 1, there's some sharp edges here. You've got to be careful if you're a kid. And 2, the seat doesn't click into place up here. So if a child gets in and accidentally leans on it and pulls it, that's really going to hurt. So you just do need to be careful. That's kind of what I'm saying about you can't have a 7-seater for 15 grand and not expect to have some compromises. Now that said, once you're back here, minding my toes, the space is really generous. I'll lower this seat so you can see a bit better. But I'm 5'11", so you know, usually in the back of 7-seaters, particularly ones of this size, I'm really cramped. But this is fine. These seats are wide enough. Knee room is fine. Headroom's absolutely fine. Now, true, my knees are above my hips, so if I was sitting here for a long journey, I think it would get uncomfortable. But if you're a child, you're not going to have a problem. There's also some nice touches. So cup holders either side, another little storage there. There's a 12-volt socket here. And even these rear windows pop open, which is a really nice touch. The only real thing that I would be concerned about, particularly as a parent back here, is this wheel jack is mounted in here. Again, it's not hidden under the floor, and that would just, in the event of a rear impact and it intruding into the cabin, would just give me pause for thought. Okay, back seats. So, the first thing I noticed when I sat in the back of this car was this roof, the way it sweeps up. And obviously we've shown how that jumps up by 4 centimetres, and you really feel it here. And actually the whole seating arrangement in the Jogger is like cinema style, so you sit slightly higher than the row in front of you. It's actually quite weird back here because the wind makes the windscreen look very narrow. It's actually not at all. But it does give good headroom. Legroom's actually good as well. Loads of room for my feet underneath here. These seats don't slide and they don't recline. I actually don't think that matters so much because the fundamentals are absolutely fine. Now you get these trays in mid and high spec models, which is a neat feature, although depending on how the driver's seat is set, this is for me at the moment. As I say, I'm 5'11". It's a little bit of a faff to get them up. If you've got kids in car seats, it's really hard to get them up, believe me. Speaking of which, I did have my kids in their car seats. They're in forward-facing car seats. And it made me realise how narrow these outer 2 seats are. In fact, it was very difficult to plug the seat belts in on my kids' seats, so do watch out for that. Now, weirdly, the middle seat is surprisingly wide, so you could actually get 3 adults in here, and you're going to be fairly comfortable. There's a low transmission tunnel, loads of space for everyone to put their feet. Right, a quick word on trim levels. Dacia keeps it very simple. So there's only 3 trim levels: essential, comfort and extreme. And then there's only 2 options that you can add, which are metallic paint and a spare wheel. The essential, that's the one that's $14,995, but it's not as basic as you might expect. So you still get air conditioning, rear parking sensors, cruise control, and of course you get 7 seats, which is the real USP of this model. The things you don't get on the essential are these roof bars. You don't get electric rear windows, they're manual, and you don't get alloy wheels, you get steel wheels instead. In fact, even the mid-spec Comfort at £16,595 has steel wheels, although it does up the equipment levels elsewhere with electric rear windows, electrically adjustable and heated door mirrors, automatic wipers and body-coloured door handles. If you do want alloy wheels, then you'll need to go for the top-spec Extreme SE version of the Jogger, which is what we have here. In addition, you get some styling upgrades, you get heated seats and built-in navigation. Now, it might have alloys, but at $17,395, this Extreme SE still looks like a bit of a steal to me. Oh, I'm really sorry. Right, front seat of the Jogger. So what do we think of this interior? Well, it's Sandero basically, so it's better than you might imagine for the price. It's still not perfect. So on mid-spec and top-spec models, you get details like a bit of satin finish on the air vents, soft feel on the steering wheel. These all help just to lift it a bit, feel a bit more plush. Again, this fabric trim across the dash helps there as well. There are still a fair few details where it's not on a par with more expensive rivals. So no colour display in the middle of the dials, it's black and white. Still, that's okay. The plastics, this is a real journalist thing, isn't it? The plastics are scratchy, no two ways about it. That doesn't bother a lot of people. I would say that in a long journey in this, it does start to feel a bit like travelling in a plastic box. But if that doesn't bother you, then that's absolutely fine. Controls are nice and easy to use. You also get a under armrest storage box there. I'm going to use this cable to show you another of the downsides of the build quality in the Dacia. So you get 2 ports here. One is for CarPlay. This one is just for charging. And when you plug this in here, you start to see where some of the build quality is not as good. So it goes in fine. When you pull it out, I mean, look at that. That does not feel built to last, does it? On the flip side, the Jogger is not just hundreds of pounds cheaper than rivals, but thousands. Dacia says it's priced the Jogger so that the new model aligns with how much a used MPV would cost at the 3-year, 30,000 mile stage. So really, I think this is the kind of interior that's going to appeal to people who do not want to be bombarded by technology and screens everywhere. And, you know, the fundamentals are really good. The controls here, physical dials and buttons, very easy to use. Actually, they feel pretty good quality as well. Storage is good. A couple of cup holders here, another tray, massive glove box. And then there's this infotainment system, which is fairly basic, but Because it doesn't have many features, that in turn makes it very easy to navigate. It does have CarPlay and Android Auto, but the graphics are a bit basic. The reversing camera is particularly low res. But if those are not the kind of things that are going to bother you, and instead you're more focused on value for money, then I think that's where the Jogger really hits the sweet spot. Regardless of which version of the Jogger you choose, for now it will be powered by a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine. It has 110 horsepower, 147 pounds-foot of torque, and provided you haven't got 7 people on board, it will get from 0 to 62 miles per hour in 11.2 seconds. Power is sent through the front wheels, and you have this 6-speed manual gearbox, which is a little bit notchy, but feels robust and is certainly not unpleasant to use. In terms of efficiency, the claimed fuel economy is 47 miles per gallon on the WLTP combined cycle, with CO2 emissions of 131 grams per kilometre. Those figures might alter marginally depending on the spec, but worth noting that in our top spec Extreme SE model we've seen 50 miles per gallon on a run and more like 45 to 48 miles per gallon in mixed driving. Now the engine is certainly not one of the Jogger's weak points. In fact, it's a fairly perky little unit. Once you've got 2000 RPM on the clock, it shoves you along quite nicely indeed. You can really feel that turbo kicking in. What it is not is the most refined 3-cylinder engine on the market. You can definitely hear it. Now, of course, Dacia has probably saved some money on some of the sound insulation, which keeps the weight down. In fact, this car weighs just 1,200 kilograms, which is remarkable given that it's got 7 seats. But yeah, you do hear the engine. Safety has been an Achilles heel for Dacia in the past. To combat this, the Jogger comes with 6 airbags and automatic emergency braking as standard. There's also rear parking sensors on all models. Mid-range comfort and top spec Extreme SE models also include blind spot warning, front parking sensors and the rear view camera. So on safety, Dacia says that the Jogger is likely to score a similar test in Euro NCAP's industry standard crash tests as the Sandero, which is to say below par. So Dacia's argument on that front is that actually the test these days, to do well in it, you need lots of active safety systems, and that actually Dacia customers are not really prepared to pay for it, so it would rather leave those systems off and record a lower score. So a good example of one of those systems is lane keeping assist. You cannot have it on the Jogger. As for the rest of the driving experience, the Jogger does have some clear strengths and weaknesses. So ride comfort actually is really not bad at all. Obviously it's no S-Class or even a VW Golf come to that, but it's not, doesn't thump you around everywhere. It actually deals really well with the usual sorts of bumps and potholes you find on the average British road. And actually, the handling up to about 6/10 is not bad either. The steering's quite quick, it doesn't lean too much in corners. So if I think back to this car's predecessor, which was the Logan MCV, albeit without 7 seats. Now I drove that car along this same stretch of road a few years ago, and I remember it being comically wayward, bounced around everywhere. It was quite charming in its own back to basics sort of way, but it really wasn't very good. The Jogger's not like that. It does feel pretty composed. Now that all changes when you really start to push it hard, when the front wheels struggle a bit for traction coming out of corners and the whole car just feels a bit overworked. That's fine though. Nobody is buying a Jogger expecting it to drive like a Golf GTI. Where the Jogger sometimes struggles is actually with some of the more basic things. So for example, for me at least, these seats are just not that comfortable. On a long journey they lack support under your thighs, and that just means you can get a bit achy. And also, while the infotainment is great in that it's got Apple CarPlay, it also happens to be attached to what seem to be pretty rubbish speakers. They're really not that great on a motorway run. Now all of those things are acceptable given the Dacia's price point, but I think the really important thing to consider here is not to get carried away with this being as good as other cars and being really cheap. It's not quite as good as most other cars, but it is exceptionally cheap, and that's a really important distinction to make when you think about the Jogger. So clearly the Jogger is not perfect, and at this price it was never going to be. There are clear areas where you can see that money has been saved, and there is still of course the question of its Euro NCAP crash test score that needs to be settled. However, in other areas, I think this car far exceeds expectations. It is way roomier inside than you might expect, and it's genuinely pretty decent to drive. And so, while I think the Duster on balance is probably still the best car that Dacia makes at the moment, this Jogger, for someone who wants 7 seats, a new car warranty, low running costs, decent levels of equipment, well, with prices from just 15 grand, I think it's almost impossible to ignore. You can find loads of great deals from top-rated dealers by visiting cargurus.co.uk.